All right, welcome everyone to today's episode. I am so excited to present to you someone really special. His name is Thomas Carson, who is the founder and president of SOSPES. And to get into exactly what it is and what you do, Tom, I just, first of all, want to thank you for being here. And how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing very well, Apolonia. Colorado's a beautiful place to live this time of year.
Oh my gosh, yes it is. Well, yesterday it was blazing hot.
Yes, it was.
It was so hot. And I was like, I'm actually ready for the winter. So so Tom is actually here in Colorado as well, in the Fort Collins area. Is that right?
We're in Boulder.
The Boulder. Okay. All right.
Boulder.
Even more
Boulder.
Beautiful. Yes. You're in beautiful Boulder. So I just really want to start off. This is your area of expertise, and I'd love for you to shed more light on this. But what exactly, for our listeners, is an EHS software, which is exactly what you do and specialize in and what your business does. But I think as a safety professional, I have done so many demos. I've done so many research over the years when EHS software was barely gaining some popularity. And, it's interesting. A lot of people still aren't using software, which is pretty interesting, even large businesses. And so can you just share with us what exactly is an EHS software? What does it do?
First of all, it's a great question. And actually, we get asked that a lot, usually by people not in the safety side.
Sure.
I was recently in a conversation with the finance person in a large manufacturing company who we've been talking with. And he actually asked me, he actually approached me and said, look, I think I know what my safety guy does all day. Why does he need software to do it?
Hearing that though makes complete sense coming from a finance team. So, yep.
Right. And so it's interesting. I think in the early days of safety software, most of what happened was a collection of administrative tasks. So completion of incident forms and reporting those to OSHA, perhaps. I think more recently, though, the safety profession and the software supporting the profession has evolved pretty dramatically. And if you just look at the requirements of standards for safety systems, such as ISO 45001, and click down through the requirements of those standards, there's a lot of work and a lot of documentation that needs to be collected to support the activities that safety professionals are leading. And a lot of those fall into the area of collecting worker input on hazards, making suggestions and that sort of thing, and then demonstrating that a company has actually done something about those.
Yes.
Which goes all the way through investigations, through developing preventative actions, to tracking that the actions actually get completed. Of course, various regulatory compliance reporting and insurance company reporting, but it goes well beyond that into the continual improvement requirements for those kinds of standards. That's a lot of stuff flying around. And yes, you could do it manually, just like in the old days, we kept financial records in a big ledger with folks with green eye shades writing out each transaction. Saves an awful lot of time if you automate it.
Takes a lot of time to do it the old school way. And you know what's so interesting is that I'm in the field of safety, and I am not seeing all of my coworkers or just other people in my network. There isn't this huge push and rush, it seems like, that everybody is using an EHS software, but it's very common sense when you lay it out like that, that we as safety professionals, I love the story that you started with for a couple of reasons. I'll tell you why. Because when I was a safety professional when I was an in-house safety person for a oil and gas construction, we had a welding shop and a trucking divisions, kind of did it all. That was my number one fear, what you just started with. And I think a lot of safety professionals can relate, is that we're working so hard every single day on moving the safety program forward. We're, usually the one person excited about the safety program at the company. We're the ones spearheading it. But we're wondering, does anybody know what I'm doing? I think that's the number one question. Maybe that's the number one fear for safety professionals, maybe, is just, are people questioning what I'm doing because you can't see it all the time? They only see an accident or an incident or a property damage. We'll see what happens if something goes wrong. But I never had a way to just package up my achievements along the way. And I was never able to package that up and show that to my boss and say, this is what I've been working on. And I love how you mentioned that a software, yes, it manages hazards, your training records, your audits, your incidents, and it tracks all your safety statistics. But even more important, and as equally important, is the action items corresponded to those events. Because I've been through OSHA inspections after post an incident, or if there's an employee complaint, maybe, it was anonymous. Either way, OSHA came through and they said, okay, we've had XYZ happen at your company. It's great that you're tracking hazards and near misses, but what have you done to prevent this moving forward? And how do you show record keeping of that? I was like, I don't know.
I think, Apolonia, you raise kind of two really, really important points, I think. The first one is a systems issue. Everybody can see that you're filling out the OSHA log, but as you know from your own experience, and I can, certainly every safety professional I know has a busy work week, and it's not just about reporting on incidents. It's trying to make sure they don't happen. And one of the things that SOSPES does, that we started doing years ago, and I can tell you a little bit about how we got into this, but we started realizing that the systems are great for collecting a lot of data, but to really have value, you need to create an output that answers the kind of questions you're talking about. Well, what were you doing all day? What have you done to manage our organizational risk? What are the activities? How can I tell if those are happening on a regular basis? I think the other part of the problem, though, the second piece is, as a rule, safety professional, like many technical fields, we're not very good at selling ourselves and selling our own performance.
You're so right about that. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. I agree.
And one of the things, every safety professional I know knows what you need to know about fall protection, about confined space entry, about hot work permitting. But they're not very good at going up to the CFO in their company and explaining the financial benefit of all the programs they've been doing. And part of it's it's a failing in the profession in a way that's starting to get fixed. But safety professionals are expensive. Mm-hmm. I think it was EHS today just published a salary survey. The median salary income, annual compensation for a safety professional is over $90,000.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, for $90,000, if I'm the president of the company, I don't want to hire the permission police. I want somebody who's going to be a partner in helping our company move forward. And that kind of training, I think, is just starting to get done. When you see safety professionals who've taken the time to get an MBA, for instance,
yes,
those guys ought to be worth gold, and women ought to be worth gold, because they're an integral part of overall organizational risk management.
Yes. Okay. You just brought up something so unique. So I interviewed a gentleman that was on the podcast recently who actually was the former Secretary of State and worked for OSHA. And so he had and he was the OSHA attorney. And so he had this really great perspective on exactly what you just talked about. I said, what's the number one problem that safety professionals have challenges wise? And he said, they don't know how to sell themselves. They don't know how to talk to C-suite leadership team members. Said safety professionals don't know how to talk to leadership as far as this is the value of your safety program. This is your ROI of your safety program. And I love, as simple as you put it, how do you talk to the CFO of your company? And so I get, and I love how you even mentioned before that, I wrote it down here so I could circle back on it, is how do we document prevention? What does it look like for a safety professional to show, hey, this is what I'm doing to prevent the next incident moving forward. Here's how I'm mitigating risk. And here's what it looks like, because you could tell somebody that, oh, I'm preventing the next incident. I'm working on incident prevention. And like, nobody knows what I'm talking about. The boss of the company, the owner's leadership team would be like, okay, I don't even know. So what is some advice or maybe some ways that a software could be utilized to document the prevention piece of a safety program?
Yeah, great question. And it's one that I think all the software vendors probably think about. One of the reasons that I got into this industry in the first place, when I was quite a bit younger, I was a finance and operations executive in a variety of companies, some quite large. And in that role, I was actually a buyer of enterprise systems.
Okay. And
I will tell you that anybody who's implemented an Oracle or SAP-based system carries the scars for the rest of their lives. And they're complicated, they're expensive, they're time-consuming, and at the end, it's just a very painful and absorbing experience. And so I vowed, when I became very interested in health and safety almost 10 years ago, I vowed that one of the things that the industry needed, it seemed to me, was a system that delivered the enterprise power that answers these kinds of questions, but that's easy to implement and that includes everybody in the process. And that including everybody in the process is key for a safety professional to be able to demonstrate how they're mitigating risk and how they're helping avoid that accident that you talked about. And because a key part of every one of the safety standards has to do with ensuring that you have employee input to identify hazards,
right,
and that you prove that you do something about them. Well, if you can't get the employee input, then you don't really, it becomes difficult to do the rest. Because it all starts with hazard identification in the field. And a safety professional in a good-sized company is never going to be able to go around and identify all the hazards.
Right.
They need help. So it needs to be an inclusive process that empowers everybody to participate. And once you've done that, a well thought out system should be able to then track the sequence of events that happens after, from initial hazard identification all the way through whatever you did about it, and even evaluate, here was the risk score. Consider the idea of a risk score before you do anything, and then a risk score after you've mitigated it. And so this is a way to start quantifying, what have you done to help me today, when you go back and talk to the CFO.
I love that. And so since I've demoed and I've been able to play around with the software of SOSPES, that specific EHS software. To put it into practical terms for the listeners, for all my EHS professionals out there. So what that all means to me is that if you're able to have a user-friendly platform that your field employees will use, and they know how to use it, they're not afraid of the software. So they're out there, and that's how you expand your safety team. It's not just the lone wolf out there, you trying to spearhead the safety program all by yourself. If you had a software that everyone can use in the company, and the guys and girls in the field are taking photos of hazards, simply they're able to assess the level of risk. And maybe that's something that either you as a safety professional or they can do, it's customizable, but we're getting hazards. It starts with getting hazards identified out in the workplace. And then the action items associated with those hazards is on your plate, right? That's what you do as a safety professional. So then the hazards are tracked. Step 2, here are the action items. And you can assign those action items to either yourself as a safety professional or for or for certain managers, supervisors, field employees, whatever. You can assign action items, but also to yourself. And so you're able to show to a CFO or someone from the leadership team and say, hey, this is how many hazards have been identified. These are almost could have been incidents. And look at everything that I and the team have been doing to work on mitigating, on eliminating these hazards. So it's all documented and it's all there. Right. And I love that. What does that look like on a dashboard? It's just my dream to have a dashboard of my safety program. I have thought this concept for almost 7 years, is if I could have a dashboard, show my boss what I'm doing, I would be golden and he would stop questioning what I'm doing. So what does a dashboard typically look like on an EHS software? What kind of metrics can it show me that I could show my leadership team?
Well, there's just so many different variations of those floating around out there. All the way from simple Excel bar charts, pie graphs and bar charts and line graphs and things, to some pretty high-end, very sophisticated, interactive, visually interactive, what they call data visualization.
Oh, wow.
Dashboards that are interactive. I'm a huge believer in data. I mean, at some point, if you have real data, it eliminates so many emotional discussions.
Yes.
About trying to claim that, well, we think this is going on. If there's actually serious data collected and you can back it up, then everybody can get over, hurt feelings about accusations and just say, yep, that seems to be what's going on. What do we do about it? And so it's just a way to speed resolution and resource allocation and a lot of other things that become critical for that, going back to your C-suite discussion. The data, we actually created a dashboard for this express purpose to help a safety professional explain what it was they spent their weeks doing.
Their year. Yeah, because the weeks then turn into quarters, which turn into years. And it's like, what did you accomplish last year? Let's say it's for a safety professional, it's our dream to have no incidents last year. All right. I still didn't feel like I got the achievement award, from my leadership team. It was like, because I felt like my boss thought, well, that could have been Apolonia, but it also could have just been that we had a lucky year, which could have been the case. And so then I didn't mean to cut you off. So then this dashboard shows what? Let's say I had a successful year last year. What are some metrics that are generally shown? I know there's so many ways you can customize this in a million different ways, but what does it normally look like?
Well, here's an example of one that we use that many of our customers find pretty exciting. It's basically what we call report action tracking. And so at the front end, we capture reports on incidents, reports on close calls, reports on observations, which can be anything from positive behavior to at-risk behavior to substandard conditions, things that need to be fixed before they turn into or create a problem, and such things as inspection fails that created an action to fix a failed inspection item. And then we take all of those reports and we show how many of those reports drove to an investigation and how many drove to preventative and corrective actions. And we provide statistics that around, well, how long did it take you to fix these? How long did they remain open? And that sort of thing. So you can actually see how much follow-up there was. Okay. You can see if there were people who maybe didn't complete the tasks that were assigned to them. But we don't let that happen much because our system, as mostly good systems, I would think, would nag. We nag you until you get it done.
Yeah.
You can't make it go away until you resolve it.
I like
and
that.
So at the end, what you see is, okay, we had this many reports submitted. We had this many that we took actions on. We had this many that are completed. And here's the what we think the consummate of the consolidated improvement in exposure was from doing that.
I love that. And I love how you mentioned that data speaks the truth, right? I mean, you didn't say it as blunt as that, but that is the truth. And how data, accurate data, live data, can help eliminate emotional conversations. And so what that means to me as a safety professional is, let's say that there are 10 different locations that a company has, and the leadership team is able to see, we have one location, never was able to see this before because it wasn't tracked, but we have one location that has 10, let's just say 10 times more incident or property damages, or something's going on with one location. All right, so safety professionals, get this. It's not you saying, hey, leadership team, I think Johnny, the supervisor, needs to be fired or needs to be written up. And then the supervisor freaking hates you because they think that the safety professional ratted them out, been in the situation before. No. The data just shows this crew, this location has the most incidents out of everybody else performing. Let's look into that. And so then that takes you as a safety professional out of that emotional conversation. And the data just shows, hey, maybe it's a certain supervisor or just a certain location that is driving these poor results. And leadership team will be able to make a decision about that.
I would actually take that one step further, Apolonia. I mean, not only, and you don't want to pick on Johnny, but not only do you now know where to focus your attention, but you also know how to focus resources.
Yes.
Because it would have been easy if all you saw was a problem that you weren't sure where it was to launch some kind of a remedial program across the whole company.
Oh, yes.
But maybe you don't need to do that. Maybe you can go in and focus on just the issue in that one location, and that frees resources for other purposes across the rest of the company.
I think
there's a lot of value in being able to identify where this stuff happens and why.
Where it happens and why, so that you can make an educated decision to allocate time, focus, resources, which is exactly what a CFO is going to want to hear. And you're exactly your point. You're spot on that if I brought an Excel spreadsheet to leadership saying that, hey, we had 25 more near misses than we did than the month prior, or there's been multiple property damages. It's really high this last month. It would be easy to say, okay, let's shut the company down. We're going into training this weekend. We're going to train everybody on the same, the same topic. Looks like the company has an issue, but it's like, no. If we could pinpoint where exactly we're having issues, and we'd be able to make a better decision. So I think that is great. I I could talk to you all day about this, but I won't bore the listeners, but I know anyone that just is a nerd about safety can talk about this all day too. So I love that. Last question I have for you is, where do you think safety is going? You're rooted into this community, you're rooted into the safety industry. Where do you see that safety is heading right now? Any trends that are top of mind for you?
I think yeah, I think a huge one. I think a huge one is the expansion of, as you know, safety in the old days was fairly siloed. I mean, they had a lot of responsibility for compliance. They had a lot of responsibility for trying to keep people from getting, on the job, not getting hurt. But I think, and again, I'm going to go back to ISO 45001 as a standard that I think is enormously important, but they're not new concepts. I mean, the VPP program, the 18001 before ISO, they all have as one of the components the notion that the safety processes and procedures really need to be part of the company's processes and procedures.
Couldn't agree more. Yes. Yep.
And so what all of a sudden I think you'll see, and good safety professionals are already embracing this as nearly as I can tell, but safety becomes an integral part of organizational risk management at a broad level. And that makes sense. You've been a safety professional. You know that many of the things that you audited and inspected back in those days actually bleed over into operating issues.
Yes.
Issues. Mm-hmm. And that's a logical extension. And with good systems to support that, I can see the safety professional becoming an integral part of operations and just overall company risk management. I'll give you an example. A good safety program, software program, we already give everybody the opportunity to report incidents involving, maybe a worker or property damage, but you could just as easily give the same application, could just as easily give a worker the ability to report harassment. Mm-hmm. They could report concerns about worker mental health. I mean, there's yes. a lot of stuff that can come out of that once you kind of teach people that, look, this is all about making our workplace better and more productive, and safer.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree more. I think that's been a huge philosophy of mine, and it's becoming more and more clear. As like you said, looking into the future, I think it's very clear. I'm a strong believer that there isn't a safety culture, that there's just a company culture, and that what's going on in the safety world inside an organization is just a result, in my mind, a byproduct of what's going on with the entire organization. And the more that we separate safety and operations and continue to live in that space, the more frustrated that you as a safety professional, the more frustrated the whole organization is going to become, because you're right, they are married together. Mm-hmm. Safety and operations, they are one of the same. And you can't have one excelling without the other. And if you do, it's short-lived. I mean, it's not, it's not sustaining. And so I'm a strong believer in that. And I love the idea of, we're not in the future, we're not just using a software or any system tracking program. We're not just tracking incidents, property damages, observations. We're tracking mental health concerns. We're tracking any concern in the workplace. It's not just safety focused. I couldn't agree more. I think that it's all one of the same. I think that mental health, I see organizations focusing on that in the future, or hopefully so, because mental health is just as much as a concern in the workplace as it is related to safety as it is anything else.
Yeah.
If somebody's mind's off, they're not in the game that day.
Well, I think that's exactly right. I would go so far as to actually say, I actually recently wrote a piece on this, but people talk a lot about safety culture, and I couldn't agree more with your comment. It's not, I mean, people don't talk, they don't talk about the engineering culture. I mean, why,
that's a great point. I've never heard it like that.
I mean,
yeah.
So I get it. There needs to be a concern for safety, and that needs to be ingrained in the company. But I almost the point I was making in the piece I wrote was that you need to be concerned really about a safety, about a structure. And because without a structure that promotes the overall values of the company, and what I don't know why you would pull out safety as just one standalone.
Yeah.
I mean, a company has a personality. A company has a value set, and all those things determine the culture. And without that structure in place, I don't know how you implement any kind of a culture.
Mm-hmm.
So this business of safety culture it's more complicated than I think what a lot of people make it out to be. It's not the CEO standing up and giving a speech once a year about how safety is our biggest value.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes. Oh my goodness. I couldn't agree more. So, well, I have gone way past our time. So thank you so much. I'm sorry for going over, but I could talk to you all day about this. And in the podcast, direct links to email and to get in touch with Tom and his company will be readily available for you. So if you have any questions for him, any follow-up, go ahead and shoot them directly over. I know you'd be happy to answer, anything that comes through. So thank you again, Tom. I really appreciate it. And we will chat soon. Thank you.
Absolutely my pleasure, Apolonia. Thank you so much.